Imagine a quiet Zen garden, centuries ago, where a young monk once asked his master, "How do we know who deserves respect?" The master smiled, plucked a single lotus flower from the pond, and said, "Respect is not about the flower's beauty, but about seeing the mud that nourished it. True respect begins when we discern what diminishes the soul, not just what dazzles the eye." Friends, in a world obsessed with status and shallow praise, Buddhism and Zen teach us that respect is a mirror, one that reflects not just virtue, but also the shadows we must release. The Buddha once said, "To respect wisely is to free the heart from illusions." Today, we'll journey through 7 qualities that cloud this mirror: arrogance, dishonesty, selfishness, cruelty, laziness, envy, and closed-mindedness. Each is a trap, yet each holds a key to awakening. By the end of this video, you'll recognize these pitfalls and discover how Zen practices like meditation, mindful speech, and the beginner's mind can transform them into stepping stones. Ready to clean your mirror? Let's begin. Chapter 1. Arrogance, the hindrance to self-improvement and connection. Let me share a story about a CEO named John. Years ago, John built a tech empire praised by millions. Slowly, he began to believe that his success was solely his doing. He stopped listening to his team, dismissed feedback, and even mocked a junior engineer who warned him about a critical flaw in their system. 6 months later, his company collapsed. The flaw became a scandal. John's arrogance blinded him to a simple truth: no lotus blooms without the mud beneath it. In Buddhism, arrogance stems from clinging to the illusion of a separate self. The Dhammapada warns, pride breeds the worm of decay in the heart. When we inflate our ego, we alienate others, stifle growth, and, like John, ignore the wisdom around us. Arrogance isn't confidence. Confidence says, "I can learn." Arrogance shouts, "I already know." Here's a Zen lesson from Master Bankei. A student once boasted about his knowledge, claiming he'd mastered every scripture. Bankei handed him an empty teacup and said, "A full cup cannot receive. Pour out your knowing, and truth will fill you." The student wept, realizing his pride had blocked his path to enlightenment. So, how do we empty our cup? Try this Zen practice: no self-meditation. Sit quietly. Breathe deeply and repeat, "I am not my achievements, my titles, or my mistakes." Visualize your ego dissolving like sand in a river. With time, you'll see how interconnected we all are. No one thrives alone. Yet, be gentle with yourself. It's easy to confuse self-respect with arrogance. Ask, am I speaking to uplift or to prove I'm right? The answer will guide you. Now, if arrogance isolates us, dishonesty shatters the very ground we stand on. Let's explore how in the next chapter. Chapter 2. Dishonesty, breaking trust and the path to suffering. Let me tell you about Sarah, a woman who once lied to her best friend about a small mistake at work. Just a harmless white lie, she thought. But that lie grew. To cover it, she fabricated more stories until her friend discovered the truth. Their decade-long bond was shattered overnight. Sarah learned the hard way. Dishonesty isn't just a crack in trust, it's an earthquake. In Buddhism, dishonesty violates samavaka, right speech, one of the pillars of the Noble Eightfold Path. The Sagala Sutta teaches that deceitful words create karmic knots, tangling our relationships and futures. Every lie, even a tiny one, plants seeds of doubt. Over time, those seeds grow into thorns that pierce the heart of connection. Here's a Zen parable. A young monk once lied about his meditation progress to join a revered monastery. The master, sensing his dishonesty, handed him a cracked bowl and said, "A broken vessel cannot hold truth." The monk confessed, realizing that hiding flaws only deepens them. True growth begins when we speak and live with integrity. So, how do we mend the cracks? Practice 3-second truth before speaking. Pause. Ask, is it true? Is it kind? Is it necessary? This simple filter, rooted in Zen mindfulness, helps align words with wisdom. Even when the truth is uncomfortable, it builds bridges instead of walls. But let's be clear, honesty isn't brutality. It's possible to speak the truth with compassion. For example, instead of saying, "Your idea is terrible," try, "Let's refine this together." Words shape reality. Choose them like a gardener tending fragile blooms. Now, if dishonesty erodes trust, selfishness poisons the soil of community. Let's explore how in the next chapter. Chapter 3. Selfishness, the isolation of the self and the importance of compassion. Have you ever met someone who treated kindness like a limited resource, hoarding it as if sharing would leave them empty? Meet Emily, a brilliant doctor who prioritized promotions over patients. She skipped team meetings, dismissed colleagues' ideas, and once told a nurse, "Your job is to follow orders, not think." Within a year, her department's morale plummeted. Patients complained, and Emily was demoted. Her story isn't unique. A 2023 Stanford study found that 65% of workplace stars fail due to selfish leadership. But Buddhism reveals a cruel irony. Selfishness doesn't fill you, it starves your soul. The Dhammapada teaches, from generosity, joy arises. From selfishness, suffering follows. Imagine a tree refusing to share its shade. It withers alone under the sun. Selfishness is that tree. It blocks the light of connection, leaving us parched in a desert of isolation. Here's a Zen koan that changed my life. A student asked his master, "How do I find happiness?" The master replied, "Carry water for someone who thirsts." The student protested, "But what about my thirst?" The master smiled. "The well never dries when all drink from it." So, how do we refill the well? Practice 1 minute giving each day. Pause and ask, "Who can I serve right now?" It could be as simple as letting someone merge in traffic or listening without interrupting. These tiny acts, rooted in Zen's beginner's mind, dissolve the illusion that generosity costs us something. But let's get real. Selfishness often wears a mask called self-preservation. Ask, am I protecting my peace or robbing others of theirs? The answer will guide you toward true balance. Now, if selfishness dims the light of compassion, cruelty snuffs it out entirely. Let's confront the shadow in the next chapter. Chapter 4. Cruelty, the root of anger and hatred, and the path to inner peace. What does cruelty look like in a world starved of kindness? Imagine a child, bullied daily for her stutter, who one day stops speaking altogether. Her story isn't unique. 1 in 5 students report being bullied, and 40% of them develop chronic anxiety. CDC, 2023. Cruelty isn't just violence. It's the absence of metta, the boundless love Buddhism urges us to cultivate. The Buddha taught, hatred never ceases by hatred, but by love alone. Yet, when we withhold compassion, we become accomplices to suffering. Let me share a Zen story that reshaped my understanding. A samurai once demanded that a master teach him about heaven and hell. The master spat at him. Enraged, the samurai drew his sword. The master calmly said, "That's hell." Startled, the samurai sheathed his blade. The master nodded. "That's heaven." Cruelty, the master revealed, is a prison of our own making. But how do we break free? Practice metta meditation. Sit quietly, breathe deeply, and repeat. May I be safe. May I be happy. May I be healthy. Then extend it to others, even those who hurt you. May you be free from suffering. This isn't naivety, it's revolutionary. A Harvard study found that 12 minutes of daily metta meditation reduces anger by 35%. When we choose love over contempt, we disarm cruelty at its root. Yet, cruelty often disguises itself as strength. Ask, am I protecting myself or perpetuating pain? The answer will reveal your path. Now, if cruelty extinguishes metta, laziness robs us of the chance to reignite it. Let's explore how. Chapter 5. Laziness, the wasted potential and the value of diligence in Zen practice. Picture this. A young artist named Jake spends hours scrolling through social media, daydreaming about fame but never picking up a brush. Years pass, and his talent fades into regret. Jake's story isn't unique. A 2023 Yale study found that the average person spends 3.5 hours daily on mindless scrolling, equating to 53 days wasted each year. Buddhism teaches that human life is a rare and precious opportunity, yet laziness turns this gift into dust. The Buddha called laziness one of the 5 hindrances to enlightenment. In the Anguttara Nikaya, he warns, indolence is a stain. It corrodes potential like rust devours iron. Laziness isn't just procrastination. It's a refusal to honor the miracle of existence. Imagine being given a diamond, but using it as a paperweight. That's how we treat our human birth when we choose inertia over action. Here's a Zen parable. A student asked his master, "How do I awaken my spirit?" The master replied, "Chop wood, carry water fully, as if your life depends on it." The student grumbled, "But that's mundane." The master smiled. Awakening lies not in grand gestures, but in giving your all to the ordinary. So, how do we break free? Practice the 5-minute rule. Commit to just 5 minutes of purposeful action daily, whether painting, writing, or meditating. Often, momentum will carry you further. Research shows that 80% of people who start small tasks end up exceeding their initial goal. But let's be honest, laziness often disguises itself as rest. Ask, am I recharging or escaping? The answer lies in whether your inaction brings peace or stagnation. If laziness wastes our potential, envy blinds us to the beauty of our journey. Let's uncover this truth. Chapter 6. Envy, the poison of comparison and the key to contentment. Imagine scrolling through social media, watching others celebrate milestones, promotions, weddings. Dream vacations while your own life feels stagnant. That gnawing ache in your chest? It's envy, a silent thief stealing joy from the present. Studies reveal that those who frequently compare themselves to others are 3x more likely to experience depression. Buddhism calls this the mind's rebellion against its peace, a poison distorting the beauty of our unique paths. The Buddha taught that envy stems from asmimana, the illusion of a separate self. In the Sutta Nipata, he warns, the envious mind is a desert matter. How much it drinks, it remains parched. When we fixate on others' gardens, we neglect to water our own. A timeless Zen teaching illustrates this. A student once complained to his master, "Others achieve so much while I struggle." The master led him to a river, scooped water into a cracked jar, and said, "Your jar leaks because your eyes are fixed on others' jars. Mend yours, and it will hold abundance." To transcend envy, embrace mirror meditation each morning. Stand before a mirror and affirm, "My journey is mine alone. I honor my pace." Then, write one genuine compliment to someone you admire. This practice, rooted in mudita, sympathetic joy, rewires the brain to celebrate others without self-diminishment. But beware, envy often disguises itself as motivation. Ask, does this push me forward or into shadows? Clarity emerges when we confront the emotion, not the illusion. What if the walls we build around our hearts aren't envy but fear of the unknown? Let's explore how closed-mindedness locks away wisdom. Chapter 7. Closed-mindedness, the barrier to wisdom and the importance of openness. Picture a librarian who refuses to stock new books, clinging only to classics. Over time, the library empties, readers leave, ideas stagnate, and dust settles on forgotten shelves. This is the cost of closed-mindedness. A mind sealed against growth becomes a tomb for curiosity. Studies show that rigid thinkers are 40% less likely to adapt to change, risking obsolescence in our fast-evolving world. Buddhism teaches that attachment to views, dithyupadana, is a chain binding us to suffering. The Kalama Sutta urges, do not believe anything merely because it is tradition, scripture, or authority. Test it with your experience. Closed-mindedness rejects this wisdom, building walls where bridges should be. A Zen parable illustrates this. A scholar once debated a master, insisting his theories were absolute. The master poured tea into the scholar's overflowing cup. When the tea spilled, the scholar cried, "Stop! It's full." The master replied, "Like this cup, your mind brims with opinions. How can wisdom flow in?" To dismantle these walls, practice the 5 whys when faced with a rigid belief. Ask, why, 5 times. For example, 1. Why do I reject this idea? It challenges my beliefs. 2. Why does that matter? I fear being wrong. 3. Why fear being wrong? It threatens my identity. 4. Why does my identity feel threatened? I've tied my self-worth to always being right. 5. Why equate self-worth with perfection? I haven't learned to embrace imperfection as part of growth. By the 5th why, you'll uncover the root fear, often ego, not truth. But tread gently. Open-mindedness isn't about abandoning principles. Ask, am I protecting truth or pride? The answer guides you toward humility, the gateway to growth. What if enlightenment isn't a distant peak, but a path paved by questions, not answers? Let's take the first step together. South, we close this journey. Remember, respect isn't about blindly admiring others. It's about clearing the fog within. The 7 qualities we've explored: arrogance, dishonesty, selfishness, cruelty, laziness, envy, closed-mindedness, are not flaws to shame, but mirrors to polish. Each time you choose compassion over contempt, curiosity over judgment, you step closer to the Zen ideal. A mind as vast as the sky, yet grounded in kindness. The Buddha once said, "You are the heir to your actions." Today, you hold the brush to paint your legacy. Will it be a masterpiece of empathy or a canvas cluttered with old shadows? Your turn. 1. Try one small act. Meditate for 5 minutes, write a gratitude note, or ask, why, before judging. 2. Share your story below. How has this journey shifted your perspective? 3. Subscribe for weekly Zen wisdom to keep your mirror clear. Remember, the path to worthy respect begins with respecting your potential. Let's walk it together.